Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the stream.
Welcome. Hi.
Welcome.
I'm so glad you're here. Well, I'm so glad you're here as well, Asa. But to those of you out in our viewing and listening audience, hello. It's Thursday and I'm excited. Well, do you want to talk about what we're talking about today?
Well, for everyone who's picking up on this stream, not live, the topic of today's conversation is none other than the iconic story Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. Today, we are going to be discussing this tale, what it says, how it works. Sarah and I are both writers. This is Story Club. We meet every Thursday. And on these Thursday story clubs, we read one short story a week coming from this anthology. So if this is your thing, if you're a writer or reader and you like horror short stories, we're here every Thursday to talk about them, to read closely, to engage with each of you. And it's a delight. So today is Call of Cthulhu. Sarah, do you want to just tell us who you are, an introduction?
Yeah. I also like that. I was going to say, I like that you have the smaller book version because then you don't have to hold up the anthology, but then you held up the anthology anyway. So just going all the way. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Ray Werner. I am a writer and podcast producer living in the Midwestern United States. And yeah, I love books. I love stories, reading, writing, consuming them. And today I'm excited to talk about this one that this was my first time reading it. So, Asa, how about you?
Same. Yes. So I'm a fiction writer. My background is in dramatic writing, screenwriting. I wrote an Audible series called Six Sermons starring Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now I'm writing fiction, learning how to write fiction, learning by reading. And that's the project of these Thursdays. And Wednesdays, we do a sci-fi story club. Have you been writing, Sarah? Have you gotten any writing done since I last saw you yesterday?
Since you last saw me yesterday, actually, yes. I had a very angry session this morning where I was sitting here. I was up at 4:30 this morning because I couldn't sleep because, that's life. And so I started doing some writing. I write by hand. And I realized I had to make negative progress today. And that's why I was angry. So negative progress is I had to go back a scene. So I'm writing season 2 of my audio drama, Girl in Space. I was working on scene 3 of an episode. I had to go all the way back to the middle of scene 2 and start restructuring and rewriting because I realized, because I am a seat of the pants, pantser, discovery writer type person, that I had committed to a path that was not 100% correct. And I spent time today like figuring out what that was, like tracing back, where did this start to go wrong? And I was like, it's in scene 2. It's not even in scene 3. It's in scene 2. This is where, but pinpointing where it was wrong and realizing that, it's not horrible. I try to ascribe to the thought that there is no word wasted. So I spent time writing all this stuff, but it still helped me grow as a writer. And now I can make more confident forward progress. So yes. How about you?
I hear that. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. Briefly, there is no wasted word. I really subscribe to that. Sometimes you got to go down the wrong roads to find the right one. I had a quick but fruitful, like 15-minute little writing sprint situation, which normally I don't bother to sit down for that short of time. Some people are like, hey, listen, da-da-da-da. But I found I've got this draft of that Christmas horror story that we worked on. We also do live writing sprints, the two of us, Sarah and I together. And last Friday we did a Christmas horror piece. And I have it. I have like more or less a draft. So I was able to go in and just work on sentences, and it's been a busy rest of the day, but I was able to do that before work this morning. So yeah, it was good.
I love that. And for those of you who haven't been here, Asa is trying out this new thing where you write before work early in the morning. And have you been like, how are you feeling about that as we're later on in the week now?
I mean, honestly, the goal is just to not check into work before 9,
Mm,
like, which generally correlates with like I end up writing. But the main thing is just to like defer that psychic space as long as
mm.
possible so that I can, even if I'm not even writing, I just think like being freed of that and like living in other, whether it's like meditating or even just being present, in the home, all that I think ultimately is good for the writing, even though today, for example, only like 15 minutes happened.
That's
So
amazing though. And I talked to a lot of writers and maybe, I think that's even where I started was writing 15 minutes before work, writing, 20 minutes over a lunch break, 15 minutes. Like I have sat in my car in a parking lot and done a little, quick writing sprint. So, so yeah. I mean, it's real.
I hear that. You gotta get what you can.
Yeah.
All right. Should we talk about this story?
I would love to talk about this story. This is going to be like no pressure, but I feel like there's a lot here to talk about.
Yeah, I feel pressure. It's a
Little-
classic. This
little
is a
pressure.
classic.
Little pressure.
Yeah, this is a truly foundational piece of literature. I think it's safe to say this story, which is a long, short story. If you're coming in truly cold to Call of Cthulhu, this is a 12,000 word or so short story by H.P. Lovecraft, written in the 20s, that really is the kind of foundational text to what we now call cosmic horror. So that's what we're dealing with. This story influenced countless writers. It is sort of the hallmark story of a larger universe that H.P. Lovecraft has created. And it's funny, I'm not even sure where to start with this tale.
Mm.
I mean, I
Should
have
we?
some ideas. Yeah, but
Okay.
what do you have yeah, go ahead.
Can we start just with a little bit of cultural context? Because I feel like maybe 30 years ago, this wasn't a thing. And then 20 years ago, like I had friends in college who were like, "Oh, Cthulhu Fatagan." And I'm like, "I don't know what this is." And it was like obscure. And then 10 years ago, I feel like things started ramping up and things started being called Lovecraftian. And we saw a rise in cosmic horror in both written and film. And then I feel like today it's Cthulhu is ubiquitous. Like if you say Cthulhu in a general setting, I don't know, I'd say at least 50%. I don't have any, data for that, but a lot of people, a lot more than even just a few years ago, will know what you're talking about.
I think that's accurate. And I think it'll at least engender associations for people that don't even know it's kind of like Kafka-esque or something. Even
Yes.
if you haven't spent a time, even if you haven't read anything since high school, the Metamorphosis, or if that didn't even cross your path, you might have
Mm-mm.
some sense of what that means. And I think Cthulhu is a term, Lovecraftian approaches that also. I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, we've
and
got video games, we've got role-playing games, we've got the cultural impact is vast.
I was showing my little chibi Cthulhu earlier just to show like how ridiculous. This is from if you've ever played Munchkin, this is from that. But it's become, I think, I don't know, larger than I don't know. I think it would be interesting to dive in and maybe examine, I think, why that's the lens I'm going to be looking at. Like, why is this such a big deal? There's so many monster stories, there's so many good monster stories. People lose their minds over Cthulhu, and it has endured and risen in popularity despite having a very problematic creator. And I think that's interesting too. So, hey, Kashiki.
Agreed. Kashiki, welcome.
Oh,
Hello,
sick.
guys. I'm sick, but this will probably help. We hope so.
We're sending you healing
Or
vibes.
it'll make you mentally sick
Yeah,
by the
yeah.
end. Always a possibility.
Log off if you're feeling like you're going to go mad.
So I want to we can get into the we will get into the structure. We'll get into the story being told, the story within the stories. But since it was our first read for both of us, I would love to know, Sarah, what it was like for you as a reader. Like, what was as a person engaging with art, what was your experience?
Yeah, it was very different than I thought it would be. I had previously tried reading At the Mountains of Madness, and it was difficult for me to get into. I didn't really get it. And this is really before I started playing games like The Sinking City, which are Cthulhu mythos focused. And so um, I was really surprised. And I think it helped too because I listened to you read it the first time. And it really helped to hear it in a way that I think took away a lot of the, I don't know if I want to say dryness, because it even wasn't as dry as I expected it would be. It was surprisingly personal and personable, at least compared to my expectations going in. Um, so yeah, that resonated with me. I loved we talked about this a little bit yesterday in our sci-fi discussion, but I love the nameless and indescribable elements. And I feel like if I had read this a few years ago, I it wouldn't have been as exciting and vivid. Reading it now when I'm old now and my imagination is like full of stuff. And so it's like, oh, I can imagine a lot. Like, so that was very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. This is okay. We've got some
Yes.
interesting points coming in.
DNM, welcome. Welcome. I appreciate this perspective. I'm going to read this comment out loud here in a bit because I do think we're going to touch upon this significantly. Thank you for sharing this. Stand by. I will read that in the mix. I would love everyone else's thoughts too if you're in the comments.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool experience of this story. And before we get to that, just the one thing that I'm really responding to from what you just said is this idea of like getting older and your imagination being more capable. You usually hear the opposite, right? Like,
Oh
was
gosh,
it,
yeah, I guess you're
is it
right.
Picasso or one of those artists who were like, we're all trying to get back to the creativity we had as
Oh,
children. And you were around a 5-year-old recently.
yeah.
My kid's a 5-year-old. I mean, they do have extraordinary imaginations, but I do like that. I do like
Huh.
that there's perhaps a sort of, we're made of magic until we're
We
like
are.
11, and then we kind of forget everything, and then we start reading and watching movies and playing video games, and all of a sudden what we're capable of expands. I think that's a really beautiful
Mhm.
thought. All right, so we can't get around this, so we may as well take this on head on.
Well,
Context.
and
Yes.
before we even get into it, is this I know for me this was a reason I was not interested in even getting into his works, was what we're about to talk about. Was that similar for you?
Yeah, no, I think we've talked about that. I
Yeah.
was just like, I can't be bothered. I want to say, Laura, if you're out there today, I think you had said that possibly in a
Yeah.
comment, Laura Huntress. But yeah, the in case you don't know, H.P. Lovecraft was not only racist, not only xenophobic, but he was sort of explicitly so. He was involved politically in making this the case, and his example is also, he was a supporter of eugenics. DNM, I hope you're not leaving, but maybe you are. If not, here's his comment, their comment. The very xenophobia he was so known for was the mechanism of his genius. He was able to transform his irrational fears of real people into eldritch monsters from beyond our comprehension.
Mm.
Not to excuse, but gross views, by the way.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Also, if you want to see a sick example of the mountains of madness influence over horror, check out Alien. A lot of good comparisons there. That was the one you were talking about earlier, Sarah, that you attempted to read.
Yeah, yeah, The Mountains of Madness. And actually Alien, not only Alien, but I think also John Carpenter's The Thing really I don't know, maybe it's the Arctic landscape, maybe it's the, horrifying unknown, but I feel like, yeah, especially Alien too, there's a lot of elements there. That's fantastic.
I think DNM's comment here does get to the most interesting part of H.P. Lovecraft's bigotry, which is kind of how the xenophobia functions in the fiction to create the other,
Yeah.
right? Like in the text, this is one way a writer can create other. We have, writers have many ways of doing that, but that does seem to be the principal literary way that it's used is, the examples of all these offensive terms, right? Mulattoes, mixed, the text is full of offensive terms that the primary personages, the primary characters of the tale, and sort of privileges and foregrounds their experience and helps create that terror. So yes, I'm glad this was articulated from you, DNM, in this way, because I do think that, it's super problematic. It made me think of that famous Toni Morrison essay, Playing in the Dark. I don't know if you ever read that, Sarah. Did
I
you
don't
ever
know
read
if
that
I
one?
have. No, tell me more.
It's really great. It's just this little essay that Toni Morrison wrote about how writers use Black characters to sort of do X, Y, or Z,
Yes.
it's a good short read for everybody. Hey, Mateo, welcome. DNM, Carpenter was a massive Lovecraft fan, and his movie, The Mouth of Madness, grossly underrated.
It's on my list, but I haven't seen it yet.
Cool. Putting that on the list also. So yeah, that is how this functions. And I think as we get into it here, we will see many examples of that we can cite directly. But just to talk about, let's start trying to break this down.
Yeah.
I think that's been a good strategy for us. Start big picture, move closer. And the biggest frame from my second reading today was we have a narrator who's saying, I figured all this stuff out. I don't want anyone else to figure this out because it made me insane, but here it is.
Yeah.
And I think that initial setup is really critical. And then, at the end, they're like, everything I just learned is probably going to get me killed. Hopefully no one else reads this.
Right.
And here we are all reading it.
Well, what are your thoughts on that? In my mind, I read it as a sort of like a purging a little bit. But I know also there's a lot of talk in here and in just Lovecraftian horror in general of cults. And I know that evangelizing something, spreading the word is sort of imperative to those cults. I don't know. Do you think that just by going through this experience, maybe our narrator has just default become a member of the cult of Cthulhu?
I like that reading. That
I don't know if it's my only reading, but it's an idea I had.
I'm initially like, no, but then, but I'm realizing that I'm not fully giving that the possibility. I mean, that is interesting. I think do we have a gender for this narrator?
I think it's a he.
I think it's a he.
I think it's a he. Just and because it's Lovecraft, and B, because of like the time and what this person has agency
the
to
access
do.
they had to and everything. Yeah. So we'll run with that. So I think that he very clearly asserts that this is to be feared, that Cthulhu and the old ones behind Cthulhu will wreak havoc, might wreak havoc if you engage with them. You, like Johansson, like his great grandpa or great uncle, Professor Engel, like himself, might meet your end. So I do think that if he is part of the cult, because the folks who worship Cthulhu seem to be safe, I think, so I think he is identifying this from this, it's like all these like non-white people who run these cults. They're dangerous, and they call upon these gods that are going to take us all out. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot going on, even in what you just said, too. So, my gosh. Do you want to... Well, okay. Sorry. I have so many conflicting questions and things. I actually just thought, did Lestrade... Or, excuse me, Legrasse. Lestrade is, I think, Sherlock Holmes. Inspector Legrasse, was there a mention on his fate? Because we know about
I don't think so. I think it might be Legrasse. I was like
Legrasse?
I was trying to catch up to
is it Lestrade?
Some Lovecraft pronunciations, but I'm actually not even that confident about it. I don't think so. I think he
Okay.
comes through. He comes to the conference. And he's like, "Hey, everybody! I got this statuette. Does anyone have answers?" And he goes back, like he gets his marginally useful answers. Goes back. Later, the narrator visits him in New Orleans, takes a look at the statuette with his own eyes. Right. Prior, the narrator had not looked at it. We just had the account of Professor Engel.
Yes.
But I don't think anything happened badly to LaGrasse.
LaGrasse. Okay. And that to me is interesting. I know in horror, I always tend to look at where is the fatal flaw? Like where is the misstep? Where is the sin? Because in a lot of horror, not in all horror, in a lot of horror, it's portrayed that you sort of get what you deserve. You earn your doom. And it's just interesting to me that the narrator, is in a place where he's going crazy. He expects to die soon. And maybe we didn't hear that to be true of, I keep wanting to say LaGrasse as well. So I'm just curious how those two are different, because I know LaGrasse even carried the idol around. Like he was like traveling with it.
Well, I think the difference, though, is that LaGrasse did not get a full understanding. That it seems like the conditions for death, which is amazing because we get this in sentence 1 of the story.
Oh, can you read that first sentence for us, just because it's so good?
So we're here together, working our way through Call of Cthulhu. This is a 3-part long short story. The first part is called The Horror in Clay, the first sentence of the first part. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. What happened to Professor Engel, to Johansson, and to the narrator is they correlated.
You're right. Oh, I just had a terrible realization.
What happened? Yes.
Like the reason that the people who join the cult are safe, is it because Lovecraft sees them as not able to put the pieces together?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's like linked to some kind of like intelligence necessarily. Okay. I mean, I think that their fealty to Cthulhu and the gods is what keeps them safe.
Okay, I like that idea better.
First and foremost, I think.
Okay, let's go with that.
But yeah, essentially, like what gives me delight in the macro with this story is that he's at the top. He's like, if you organize your thoughts, you're doomed. And then he organizes them
and shares them with us. How generous.
And then we're doomed, right? Presumably. So I think that's the difference with LaGrasse, is that LaGrasse had the statuette, but he wasn't in the weeds in the way that Engel knew about the dreams. Johansson saw the creature itself. So even though he didn't understand anything, if you confront Cthulhu in the wild, you're done for. That's what happened. And the narrator is doomed because they know everything.
That's good. Okay.
That's where I am at with my understanding.
I think that's a good understanding.
Mateo, some really great comments coming in.
Yeah.
Mateo, the reader being doomed to the same fate is so fun to me. Creepypasta does that a lot. Yeah, I really need more creepypasta in my life.
I will send.
I love this connection. And yeah, I agree, Mateo. It is fun. It just, the story becomes satisfying on multiple levels at once. I think part of it is the narrator views the people who are in the cult as bad people in general. So I don't think he would join it. Yeah, I think that's safe to say. I think that's safe to say, right? They're not only like lesser sort of biologically or something. There's also a moral judgment that they're less good,
less discerning about the
for sure.
They join.
Yeah, they can't see. Yeah, exactly. Lore Huntress, Asa, what are your thoughts after reading The Ballad of Black Tom in parallel with The Call of Cthulhu? Haven't read it yet. I'm thinking, you have it too, Sarah. Nice.
Oh, it's so good.
I'm thinking of reading Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff, though.
Also very good.
Okay, I knew that was a TV show.
Oh, it's so good.
But I didn't know that was a book. That's so cool. Well, what I think is my thought there, Lore Huntress, let me just pull it out if I can find it. which I'm
Yeah,
not seeing
while Asa
immediately.
is looking for that, if you would like to read something Lovecraft and gorgeous and horrifying and deeply moving that isn't super racist, check out The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. It's extremely good, and I think stays true to and even elevates the, I don't know, effects or mood or general vibe of the original. So,
Yeah, I'm not seeing my copy of that, but fortunately, you all know what that looks
oh,
like now. But I am seeing my copy of this. So, The Ballad of Black Tom is a retelling of this story. So, I think that the horror at Red Hook feels very different than the Call of Cthulhu. I know that a lot of other stories of Lovecraft's, like Dagon, which is the very first story of this particular anthology or anthology collection. In some ways, he's retelling this story. Apparently, like from these intros that I'm reading, it's like he has like basically rough drafts. Some of his most classic stories have rough drafts, more or less, in earlier published works.
I had no idea.
So to engage exactly what you're saying, Laura, so this is worth reading in conversation with The Ballad of Black Tom. I feel like if you had to pick one, the pairing of Ballad of Black Tom and the horror at Red Hook is great because there's like direct overlap, and that's like a really fun, text to text experience.
Yeah.
DNM, there's an implication that one's capacity to understand the abstract opens one's mind to the madness of the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
The theme was excellently repurposed in the game Bloodborne. Sarah, you're the gamer amongst us too. Is this a game that you know?
It's a game that I know. I haven't played Bloodborne, but yes, it's fairly gross from what I've seen of it, but like in a great way. So yeah, my knowledge of Bloodborne is not where it should be. But I do know there's a ton of Lovecraftian games out there. The Sinking City is one of my favorites. And there's a long list. Yes, Bloodborne is highly regarded by those who play it. Yeah, I just haven't gotten around to that one yet. It is a hard game. Maybe that's why. Is it like a Souls-like? That might be why I haven't played it, because some games are too hard for Sarah.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Okay, well, this is cool. So, here's a cool thought coming in.
Oh, KBK, hey.
KBK, welcome. I came a bit late into this conversation, so excuse me if I'm off on the discussion topic. As a fan of cosmic horror, I've always felt a bit of kinship to the cultist or believers, being able to accept the differences, Dagon, Deep Ones, Revenant, or to embrace the unimaginable changes, Outer Gods, Old Ones, Miko, has always appealed. That's an exciting thought.
Yeah. And you're not off topic at all. Like, this is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah,
kinship with the cultists and believers.
You have kinship with the ones who don't go insane. So I think that's sound. Welcome, KBK. Okay, so we've got this overall structure where this narrator says, "Hey, everybody, I'm going to tell you a tale that I wish I didn't know. I hope that I never share to anybody else, so they don't share the same fate." And then tells the tale. What's our next point of entry here, Sarah? / anyone else in the comments.
Yeah.
This is such a vast story that any kind of vector that someone is sort of excited to engage with could be useful. This is Sarah and I are new to this story.
Yeah. So your insights are extremely valuable. I know that often when we start these, we go with sort of a play-by-play of the plot, but this is basically summed up as, narrator collects information. And like, you can kind of sum it up in that, from newspaper clippings to sculptures to bas-reliefs of clay, to eventually a personal story told by someone who experienced, a story of he finds it in the diary, I think, that the wife of Johansson gives him. He reads a first-hand account of it. I think I think what I would like to ask, just because I'm curious, points of entry for this. This is such a legendary story. Did it scare you? And what did it, if so, what did it mean for you to find fear and experience that within this text?
I was not scared, but I really enjoyed reading it. I was thrilled, I think.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, just my answer to that question of what was this like for as a reader, and I've said this before, it's just anytime an artist, whether it's a filmmaker or a writer or anything, has a specific, distinct vision and then just goes for it, and sort of the artistic courage of putting something out into the universe that's so different, committing, as it were, to the sort of rules of the work of art, believing in it. I really felt that. I felt like, holy moly, this is an artist that believes in what they're doing. And this is insane and strange, but you can just feel the vision. So I had that experience. That was thrilling. And then just the sort of the almost sublimity of the
Ooh.
world that's being rendered, the transcendent nature. Most literally, it's like cosmic. We can't understand this. But I think the commitment to sort of heightened language, it all kind of like felt inspiring in that way. So I was never scared, but I definitely appreciated this in many ways. And it did evoke an emotional response, which is like it evoked awe, I think, at some
Yeah.
level,
Oh.
and on some like William Blake or some kind of like, this is like, we're going to use giant language to describe giant things. And I dare you not to feel something.
Right. Well, did you just use the word transcendentalists? Because, like, that's
Well,
very
transcendent.
much,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All that ties in really nicely.
Yeah.
Did the, well, I'm curious, did the language, um, being very, I don't know, verbose, or I don't want to call it purple prose because it's not, but did that elevate the text for you at all, or did it affect, if Hemingway would have written this story, like, would it have felt a little less grand to you?
Yeah, I think I was on board. I think I was really
Hmm.
on board with the rhetorical quality of this. I think that this kind of prose is relatively, I haven't read enough, but I think is relatively consistent
Hmm.
with kind of prose of this time. A little more florid, a little more like, we're going to use a lot of big words. But it really worked for me for this particular story and felt organic
Mm.
to the subject matter.
Yeah.
So I was on board. And I don't know, I just appreciate old school writers that like, all these people, they only had like 10 books. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They had like Shakespeare, the Bible, and if they could read Latin, they had the classics. And like, I don't know. I'm old school like that. I appreciate like the kind of um the rhythm, the sort of experience of that has like classical echoes, which I could feel in this piece.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I asked that about the language specifically is because, I mean, it is something that we don't see a whole lot of in horror, which tends to be a little bit more pulpy, a little bit more for the masses, but also because of so many adaptations of this work adapt it without using Lovecraft's very specifically like rich verbose language. And I'm wondering if, they're maybe a little bit less effective because of that. Or maybe
That's
it's just a
that's
difference that.
interesting. I mean, I think that's just a testament to the way that this, I mean, just the monsters alone, like the depiction
Mm,
of Cthulhu alone has generated has activated the imaginations of so many people,
mm.
you know?
Oh, you know
Um,
what? Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Well, I was
Oh,
gonna
I
say
just,
that was another
go
thing that
ahead.
surprised me, but I think I've interrupted you twice, so please continue.
Hey, this love of the game over here. I want to bring in all the
Yes.
comments. Mateo, something I found very interesting is how the artist created this statue of Cthulhu, this unimaginable thing. Scientists couldn't understand it.
Mm,
I think it represents how we make art to understand things. That's also an exciting thought.
And what Laura said here, please read this out loud.
The description of Cthulhu squirting his reeking cemetery-like juice all over the place produced visceral disgust. LOL. Yeah. I mean, I had the same thought. I was like, am I reading what I'm reading right now? I am reading what I'm reading right now. Yes.
Is it bad if I wanted it to even be a little bit worse?
Oh, I love that.
Can we talk about Cthulhu for a second?
Yeah.
Because this was new, like so new to me. I thought that just from cultural knowledge and not having read the actual story that explains it, I didn't know that Cthulhu was a priest of these elder gods. I thought Cthulhu was like the main character. I thought Cthulhu was the main god. So like going into this and understanding like who Cthulhu actually is was surprising, at least for me. And it was also surprising that Lovecraft is so deeply specific about what Cthulhu looks like. And it's like very specific about like tentacles and like gooey feet and like just Lovecraft. Mateo says Lovecraft had to make sure you knew Cthulhu had thick thighs. Where's the lie though? Yeah, it was very specific. And I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday in our sci-fi discussion, but Lovecraft's tendency to say like, oh, it was unimaginable and indescribable. Let me describe it for you, right? And it just was so deeply. This was I feel like the description of Cthulhu was one of the most vivid things we're given in this story, the physical description of Cthulhu. And I was just wondering, what are what are your thoughts on that? Sorry, I'm laughing at the comments. I'm not laughing at Cthulhu.
Yes. I didn't have that experience. It was vivid for sure, but it didn't strike me as extra vivid compared to anything else. But that doesn't mean it wasn't. And I do think that like there were sections, particularly kind of this part that Laura Huntress brought up, that were particularly vivid for sure, that were direct byproducts of Cthulhu. What I did share is what I did not know is that Cthulhu, what isn't the old ones, the Cthulhu is a priest of the old ones. And then I also noted today in the second read that Cthulhu is a priest, and then among the cults there are priests as well. So it's like the sort of levels of mediation between Legrasse, for example, who's described as an average-looking middle-aged man. The degrees of mediation between an individual like that and the old ones, and how many like layers there are.
In a hierarchy, which I think is interesting too. It looks like a very strict hierarchy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
I think, one of my favorite things of this story is the kind of internal contradictions that it has with itself. And for example, there's the kind of micro ones, which is, and what they saw was undescribable and then is described. But I feel like there's other tensions at work where it's basically, I don't think it all adds up. Ooh. Like when the old ones arrive, when the cities happened, and I need to read it a third time, I think, to really get into that. But I think there's contradictions around, who started the cities, when the cities went underwater, did the old ones start the cities, when did they opening up, when are the stars aligning? And I don't think it always aligned. And since we're talking about old books today, I took this really great class in college about epics, where we close read the Odyssey and the Iliad and Omeros by Derek Walcott and all these things, and how a lot of these books contradict themselves in similar ways.
Interesting.
And the thesis that particular professor had was like, by contradicting themselves, it expresses the multitudes of the universe or the multitudes of the world within the text.
Like
And
multiple viewpoints, like people who like, oh, it was a red sweater, no, it was a blue sweater, like that kind of thing with two eyewitnesses who don't agree.
yeah, and just like there's so much going on, I guess even in a more macro way. It's like the world is so big
Mm.
and experiences are so varied that to help demonstrate that there's not going to be a clear order or right and wrong in this story. In fact, characters are going to contradict themselves, just in case you were wondering how big everything is, you know. And I feel like some of that was happening here.
Interesting. I I was tempted to go through and make a timeline, but I ended up not doing that because um I don't know. I somehow like trusted Lovecraft to I was like, "Oh, I'm sure it lines up." But I wonder now if I went back and like charted that out with the dates and everything. I mean, if even that would have some discrepancies in it.
Well, this is where it's just like, you know, there's all these Lovecraft heads out there who are
Somebody's done it.
just like, you know, yeah, just go so hard with this kind of stuff. And this particular collection was really useful because there were tons of footnotes. There were 50 footnotes.
Oh my
And
gosh.
one of the ways in which the footnotes were really interesting was that they pointed to other stories, you know. For example, things like the Necronomicon or whatever is like referenced in several stories. And so, you know, just to have some kind of context. Should we look at KBK's comment?
Yeah.
You want to read this for us?
Yeah. KBK says, I think that part of what makes Cthulhu such an interesting character. Oh, that is what part of what makes Cthulhu such an interesting character. We understand what a priest is, even if we don't understand what that priest worships exactly. Right. Or even what worship means in that case, or what a priest's function is. And I mean, in this case, the priest's function is, I believe, like the bodily resurrection of the old ones, these elder gods. Is that true? Because he talks about Cthulhu's role.
I'm curious. Yeah, let me know if you find that passage. That's interesting because we know that the old ones work their way into us through dreams.
Yes. Sorry, it's gonna.
Yeah, no, go for
it. This is quite a long story.
But yeah, I'll keep riffing on this idea of what a priest is while you're looking for that. Because KBK, I think you're totally right. It's like, well, I'm curious what you think here. We understand what a priest is. And when Sarah was saying what it is that they're worshiping, you know, yes, that is one definition of a priest, a sort of facilitator, guide, shepherd, if you will, of worship. But it seems like maybe in this case, a priest is just like more of a literal intermediary.
Yeah.
You know, you find it?
I did. It's on page 95 of the Dark Descent anthology. They worshipped, so they said, the great old ones who lived ages before there were any men and who came to the young world out of the sky. Those old ones were gone now, inside the earth and under the sea, but their dead bodies had told their secrets in dreams to the first men who formed a cult which had never died. This was that cult. It always existed, etc. And would be hidden in distant wastes and dark places all over the world until the time when the great priest Cthulhu from his dark house in the mighty city of Relia under the waters should rise and bring the earth again beneath his sway. Someday he would call, hence the name of our story, when the stars were ready, and the secret cult would be always waiting to liberate him. So,
what was remind me, what was the cue there? Why were you thinking of that? What made you think of that passage?
I was interested in the role of the priest and how the priest relates to the old ones, and like when the call comes, is it calling to the old ones, and like how does that work? How does this resurrection happen? You know, how does it work when they're under the earth and under the sea? It felt like we were told a lot, but I maybe didn't 100% grasp. I felt like it was strangely like mechanical, like it was very descriptive of like, oh yeah, here's what's going to happen. So yeah, so I was
That's
just
interesting. Yeah,
curious.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, I think that like the places where it is vague is maybe really intentional, because I do think that is like maybe the most consistent message is beyond understanding. I mean, we saw that to get into one section a little more deeply, because I think this helps illuminate what Lovecraft does with religion. If we go to LaGrasse's account
Ooh,
when they
yes.
go into the swamp, so this guy, Detective LaGrasse, catches wind these squatters, who, incidentally, per his like eugenics nonsense, the hierarchy is so clear here. It's like these are like poor white people who are kind of weird, but good folk. There was like tiers, and it was like this was existing, anyway.
Yeah.
But
The
anyway,
squatters
so the
are white
squatters come.
folks. Yeah, and
Yeah,
sorry,
of French descent. Right.
their women and children have gone missing, and I don't know
Yes.
if it had been another community, if the police would have taken an interest in it.
Definitely. Right. So you
So
have these squatters who are missing some kids. They live in these huts at the edge of the swamp in Louisiana. And they come to the police and they're like, hey guys, the kids keep disappearing. Can you do something about it? And then the police come, and then there's kind of layers and layers of depth into the into the heart of darkness, if you will. And I think just the way he sets that up, it's like, and this was the edge of the swamp, and no one had ever gone past the edge of the swamp. And then they go past that, and then it's like, and then there was the lake even farther that people had heard of, but no one had seen. And then beyond the lake, there was like a red flare, and it just gets increasingly vague and increasingly esoteric. And by creating this sense of like, there's always something deeper, there's always something less known, without fully spelling it out. The things that are the least known are the most vague in their description. Like there was a white blob on the other side of the lake. And so it just creates kind of the feeling. I keep coming back to the word esoteric.
yeah.
There's probably a more specific religious word, apocrypha.
Oh,
Maybe.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if I'm using that right. There's like, I'm thinking of like Jewish cults, like that.
Oh, mysticism, like the mystics?
Yeah, where there's like these like texts where you're kind of doing like readings of certain texts.
Oh shoot, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't.
Yep. I'll let you
Okay.
know when it comes to me.
Right. Well, that type of lore or knowledge, like secret knowledge. Yeah, I think like mysticism. And so there's just always like the secret beyond the secret. It's like the edge of the swamp. Like the swamp was impenetrable and no one knew the swamp. But that actually was only relatively secret compared to the other secrets. And I think that sort of increasing mystery is also how he renders the gods.
You know what?
Such that there is not the specificity that, like, I think I'm just affirming your experience, if I understood you correctly, of the lack of specificity around, like the ultimate lack of specificity around how this works and the timeline or lack thereof,
Yeah. I think too, it was interesting you brought up Jewish mysticism, because entering the temple, I mean, this is a process. Kabbalah, thank you. This is a process like that, like entering, the first layer of the temple and the second layer of the Jewish temple. And then, the very center, you have the holiest of holies. You have the mystery in the center that not everyone is allowed to visit. So sorry, just a little connection.
Yeah.
That my brain made.
Lore Hunters has a question here. That's so fascinating. Are there other gods in Lovecraft's other work? Well, I've only read Dagon from this collection, which is the same universe, and then this story, The Horror of Red Hook. So DMM, maybe you know what's up. Maybe someone else who has read more Lovecraft knows what's up. In The Horror of Red Hook, though, I'll say this, Lore Huntress, there is the sense of lost gods. There's the sense of a cosmology other than our own, impenetrable to understanding. It is not the Cthulhu one, if I'm remembering right. I don't remember mention of them. So I think that he's interested in this idea of the occult, this idea of inconceivable gods, but it's not exclusively the Cthulhu mythos and universe.
Interesting. Yeah, KBK says there's so many gods, they're uncountable, and they come from the stars. And maybe they are the stars themselves. I really like that idea.
Yeah. Okay,
Oh,
just
if the gods... Oh, sorry.
I want to hit your comment,
Yeah.
Mateo. I see your comment, but just since we're in this convo, sorry, I meant are the gods mentioned offhand in Cthulhu specifically connected to other stories? I don't know the answer to that.
I also am not sure if the old ones show up in other accounts. So I'm gonna leave that up to anyone in the comments. If you know, let us know. So
Mateo says, I think that's good world building. When you find out a world gets bigger, deeper, the reader can just assume it goes on and on when maybe it doesn't.
I love that. And maybe by describing Cthulhu in such visible detail, we think, oh, there's visible detail for all this other stuff we're not seeing. And then our imaginations can take over and fill that in. I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's relates to this idea of the faith that Lovecraft has in his universe. You know, I feel like I've read other fantasy novels where the world building is rich and vivid, but it doesn't have that kind of like ideological might that
or like
this
zealotry.
has. Yeah.
Like
And I was reading a critical essay about Lovecraft in general, and this was written so long ago. This is like pre-Google and everything else. But people like would go to their libraries looking for the Necronomicon. You know, they would try to find this text because, and I think that's because he's so committed to it, which I think speaks to what you're saying, Mateo, which is that if there's like moments of bigness and depth, we really buy in. Okay, should we look continuing here, Sarah?
Yeah. Oh, there are multiple. So DNM says there are multiple competing pantheons of ancient eldritch gods. Yes.
Okay, that's super useful.
Reality is the dream of a blind idiot god at the center of all creation, which a little nihilistic, but you know, I get it.
Lore Huntress, does that get at your question? And then DNM says, reality as we know it is the dream of a blind idiot god at the center of all creation.
So, you know, just a little nihilistic.
Mateo, Lovecraft made this idea of cosmic horror very popular, I think. Yeah, I mean, he's credited with really launching this, but there were precursors.
There were. And he even quotes Algernon Blackwood in the very beginning of this story. And yeah, I've only read one thing by Algernon Blackwood, The Willows, which is mind-blowing, and it's essentially, at least I think, about pocket universes within this.
That's in here, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, well, maybe we'll get to read The Willows by Algernon Blackwood. It's really good and delightful. But
if you're just joining the feed, this discussion of Call of Cthulhu today is part of Sarah and I working our way week by week, story by story through this horror anthology. So we're here every Thursday. Come back if you want to hang out. P. Ezrohi says, this makes me excited to finally check out Lovecraft. That's kind of how I feel, in that I just feel like I've touched the surface.
Yeah, me too. Which is why, I mean, you know, I can't answer all these other questions about like other gods and stuff, but I am also very interested to look through and make some of those connections. And even, Asa, to your point, to understand like what was a precursor to what and what was a rough draft for what. I think that would be interesting to look at too.
And Lovecraft, as you know, up in the lineage and working our way down. Like, I know Lore Huntress and I have been jamming on this writer, Thomas Ligotti, who a lot of people consider an heir of Lovecraft, cosmic horror. That's what made me want to get to Lovecraft, was these stories.
Interesting.
Every time you read about his stories, it's like, took the baton from Lovecraft. And so that, you know, I think, you know, I was talking with a friend just the other day about this, how interesting it is to kind of track a writer back, you know, to see who their influences are.
Yes.
KBK, oh, I love a good anthology. We'll pick that up. There is so much great cosmic horror now, game systems and books and movies. and there are different viewpoints within those stories. The fear of change and differences, embracing that fear, desiring the change and becoming something unrecognizable to what you once were. It's so great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for better or for worse.
Mateo says Lovecraft is important. To read Lovecraft, though, I feel like you have to be prepared for racism and stuff like that. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like the language is offensive.
It's
the
very
language
offensive.
itself offensive. It's not just that you have characters of color in problematic roles. It's like that the language.
It's just very, it's very derogatory.
Yeah.
I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the stream, but if you want to dip your toe into Lovecraft, which sounds gross, but if you want to do it without sort of the grossness, there's a lot of great retellings. There's The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. The BBC has a great production called The Lovecraft Investigations. There's the Call of Cthulhu mystery program, all of which are faithful to the stories and to the spirit of the stories. But they're in more modernly retelling the stories. They avoid a lot of offensive language. Yeah.
So I want to move to one of the most interesting motifs that I found in this threads, where the narrator is like, I didn't believe any of it. That is an arc where from the jump, he was like, this is a bunch of garbage. Yeah. This is a bunch of hocus pocus. I'm not into this. I'm a rationalist. I can't believe that I'm even entertained it. And then slowly, they do adopt the truth of all this. Was this something? And I tried to really pinpoint why and how that evolution happened and failed a little bit. So I was wondering if this was something that you noticed, Sarah.
I did notice that. Especially by the end. I mean, this narrator is in full service to this mission. Like this has become all consuming. This has become this narrator's life. So much so that they're traveling to was it Norway to visit the firsthand account of the sailor. And it is gradual. And I did the same thing. I went back and I tried to look. And it's interesting because the narrator is telling us all of this with his own foreshadowing. And so I want to say there's like a lot of yes. So like at the end of the very first section, he says like, oh, it was a weird bunch of cuttings. I set them aside, but I was then convinced that young Wilcox had known of the older matters mentioned by the professor. And he's hinting that, later on he's going to become a full convert. At the end of the second section of the story, because there's 3 total, he said, I think Professor Engel died because he knew too much or because he was likely to learn too much. Whether I shall go as he did remains to be seen, for I have learned much now. So there's a conversion, and I don't know if the conversion happens within the story. I think that from the beginning of the story, the narrator is really self-aware that he was being ignorant and he was being, I don't know if I want to say closed-minded, but he didn't want to believe this. He didn't want to even entertain the idea that this could be real or serious. And so I don't know if he has that shifting point within this story itself. I think he's grown through this, and now he's just relaying the tale as an old convert who thinks he may be about to die.
Yeah, just to directly reference the text, I'm going to read what I think is like a critical story sentence that gets to exactly what you're talking about. He's talking about the documents that he found. He's talking about the letter from Johansson, the soldier or the sailor. That was the document I read, and now I have placed it in the tin box beside the bas relief in the papers of Professor Engel. With it shall go this record of mine, this test of my own sanity, wherein is pieced together that which I hope may never be pieced together again. So that's just a really interesting conception of what he's setting out to do.
It really is. Yeah.
He's saying that he's testing his own sanity. Like, why?
Yeah.
And, that line lingers for me.
It didn't linger for me when I read it, and then when I read it again, but like now with you pointing it out, it's how did that not stick with me? I think it should have. I think that's very interesting because I guess if we look at the narrator's motives, we know that he is like giving us this account in the hopes that no one ever reads it, but we're reading it now. Is this maybe one of the contradictions you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating, right? Where it's like, again, going back to that very first sentence, it's like the great gift, the most merciful thing in the world is that we cannot organize our thoughts. I think it just goes right back to that, where that's a huge contradiction because that's what he's trying to do, organize his thoughts. I want to look at this comment from Mateo. Having a skeptic turn into a believer in the story helps the reader believe the story a little bit more. I like this, and one thing that Sarah and I always do in these videos, and which we'll do today, is talk about like, okay, what can we take away from this as writers?
Right.
And, I'm a big believer in like story engines, that kind of concept. It's kind of like annoyingly screenwriting-y and like craft-esque, but I do think that is an engine in this story, is that we have this character that sets out by saying, I was a skeptic, right? Frequently they were like, I was such a skeptic. I can't believe how much of a skeptic I was. Right. And so we know that the skepticism will be undone, that they will become a believer. Right. And so part of the keeps us turning the pages, part of the story engine is this question of like, how did they do it? How did they go from being this much of a skeptic to a total believer? And yeah, I think that's just a cool, in terms of how this works as writing, how this works keeping us going. That
well, and
helps.
I'm thinking too of like, as a first person narrator saying this, like how often do people in real life, how often will people admit like, oh yes, that belief that I held was very wrong, and I'm changed now? It's just, I think that is like, it adds a little bit of a shock to it, adds a hook for us to say like, wow, this person is admitting that they were wrong about something, and so they must have really gone through something in order to change.
Yeah. Do you want to read KBK's comment, Sarah?
Yeah, KBK says that that line lingered for me too. Is organizing your thoughts and learning the truth going to drive you insane? Is being insane or a believer necessarily bad? Ooh, or just a change you don't understand? I like that. It makes me think of the geometry that the sailors were experiencing in part 3, The Madness of the Sea, or The Madness from the Sea. So, and this is interesting because for me, the geometry, so they're like falling into angles that are like, they look acute, but they're actually obtuse, and they're falling off of these things. And, we look at math and geometry as a way to like understand and quantify, how we interact with the world. And, to think that there is such a different mindset, such a different worldview, that would rewrite the laws of mathematics, that would rewrite the physical properties of things that we're used to interacting with, like, that's going to be if you can organize your thoughts to that degree, you're going to come out different. Your brain's maybe going to be like, have like right angles, or, something's going to permanently shift.
Yeah.
It's not just changing your mind. It's like rewriting your own internal structure.
I think that's well put. I mean, yeah, what's being asked of you to encounter the truth is multifold. It's you have to consider the rules of the universe the same. You have to imagine a scale incomprehensible. You have to imagine time in a way that you never have. If you want the truth, it's going to break your brain, I think. And per your question here, KBK, is being insane or a believer necessarily bad? I think what this story says is you'll die. I think like the line is, if you learn the truth, you'll go insane and you'll be like pushed down the stairs. The captain, the professor, they were killed. And I think that this writer thinks that he's going to be killed too.
Killed by that part was interesting to me because that seemed so mundane. But if it was orchestrated through the dream communications of the elder gods, because you knew too much, I don't know. That was a sticking point for
okay,
me.
so the professor is killed by a seaman Negro, I think is the character that's described.
Yeah.
I forget.
Who just like pushes him in.
Right. Or it's less deliberate. It's like
Just like get
they
nudged.
they like ran into each other and the professor fell and died. And then the captain, the Norwegian guy, documents fall from a building.
Yeah.
And kill him. And the doctors say inexplicably. So I got the sense that the documents that fell on him were not, it's not like it was like a ream of paper. And I thought that was like a clear, potentially like, knowledge will kill you, like paper metaphor.
It's a little on the nose.
Maybe. But I think that the implication, the way I read the death of the professor, was that this Negro on the docks was a member of the cult taking out, this was a follower of Cthulhu punishing him.
But punishing him for trying to understand and not following blindly, is that kind of the connection? So trying to understand, trying to become like them instead of simply worshiping. I mean, is that the implication of the sin that was committed here?
I thought I had it, Sarah, and it doesn't add up. No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think, no, I don't mean it in any kind of way. It's exciting. Yeah, no, it doesn't quite add up because like they don't really have a motive for taking him out. Maybe it's
interesting.
Incidental.
Well, if you think of the Christian story of the Garden of Eden, the principal sin of Adam and Eve was wanting to become like God, wanting to understand things in the way that God does. And so is this sort of a transliteration of that? Is it because they're, like the very first sentence of the story says, the inability of the human mind to correlate the contents is attempting to correlate these things? Is that the sin? Are like, oh, you're trying to be like one of them. You're off. You're gone. We're going to nudge you into the ocean.
That's actually like a really life affirming, like that actually lends this story a life affirming perspective because it's like you need to stay alive.
Yeah.
And if you seek knowledge, you're going to die. I want to engage with what everyone's saying here. Do you think the narrator says Mateo? By the way, everyone, this is Mateo Leon Rodriguez, who is a writer. Mateo has a channel on YouTube. Do you think the narrator would describe himself as a savior? I personally think so because he made this text to save others from Cthulhu. Did he? I feel like he says, I hope no one ever does this. I'm wondering what you're seeing, Mateo.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
I think Lovecraft was coming from a place of fear around that when some other philosophers come at it from a place of wonder. Right, what you just said, life. And what happens after you experience this change may also have a new definition. I think that's 100% true. I mean, there's no doubt that like there's a before after moment.
Yeah.
If you are able to grasp the cosmos. Mateo says, knowing and being a believer does have an air of negativity in this particular story.
Which does make me eager to read and to see if this is like a recurring theme, the effects of belief, or not even the effects of belief, but the effects of trying to understand. Because I think there's a difference here between the worship and the trying to make sense of things.
Oh, actually, that's a really good point, right? It's like, is the sin, as it were, knowing or pursuing knowledge? That's like a fine but important distinction, I think.
Yeah. I kind of have to reread it.
Yeah.
To figure that out.
ABK says, good question. Sarah, could that motive be protecting reality as we know it?
I mean, maybe so. Sorry, I'm like trying to wrap my mind around, reality as we know it and like what that even means. Yeah, that was in relation to the killing of the professor, right? And then the killing of the witness, Jorgensen, or why am I
Johansson.
bad with Johansson? Why am I terrible with names in
Johansson.
this story? Um, yeah, I think so. And the captain. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, yes, going to our normal question, Sarah. As writers,
Yeah.
what inspires you here, and what can you possibly see yourself implement
Mm.
into your own work?
I love the narrator's foreshadowing his own conversion. I think that was extremely powerful for me. I loved every time he would end a paragraph or a section with, but I did not know then what I knew, what I know now. It's like, well, you want to hook me, like that's how you do it. And so that was another unexpected thing for me, was that this was treated sort of like a mystery. It's almost got like a Sherlock Holmes, like collecting the data, visiting the eyewitness. Um, so yeah, I think for me, it's the building of a mystery. Even though I know this is traditionally a famous work of horror, I think it definitely has. I don't know. Who's Poe's investigator?
Oh, I don't know. Good
Dupont.
question.
Auguste Dupin. Is that right? I had like maybe some vibes of that, and maybe a little bit of a Sherlock Holmesian thing. But I could find myself like, and even things now like Gravity Falls, where you're like finding the parts of a journal and you're putting the pages, like there's something so compelling about piecing together a mystery. And for me, that was really compelling. And the one thing that we didn't really talk about this, but I don't know if we needed to, was the ending, the way that the monster is described, and the way that this the battle of the ship plowing into Cthulhu was described, felt a little like sloppy and silly to me. And so just maybe that's a conversation for another day. But I think that what was done so well here was the drawing out of the mystery and the narrator's conversion.
Love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love
Well,
that. But wait, I
and
do want to. Yeah, go
oh yeah.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, well, what about you? Like, what would you take away writing wise?
I have some things, but I am curious about this point that you're making about the ending. Can you say a little more about that?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, or not, or not, or not.
Okay. No. I'm happy to. So this was so powerful for me. And I think maybe this just illustrates something that we've been talking about, and that is the power of not fully describing everything, because fear is so ephemeral, fear is so subjective. And when you get an objective description of something that might scare one person but not another, it really made me sad to think of Cthulhu as a pursuing jelly. And it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, like maybe that's a little gross, but like that is not intimidating to me, to think of this like big, and he's talked about as like he's floppy.
You're
Uh
talking about when Cthulhu is chasing them
yeah.
as they get back to the boat.
Yeah, right before he recombines, which I think is I think that's really cool. Yes, Cthulhu got the Ursula treatment. I thought about that too, Mateo. At the end of The Little Mermaid, when spoilers for a 25-year-old movie, but 40-year-old movie, but when
Yeah,
the ship pops Cthulhu, what's really cool though after that is that Cthulhu like regenerates after that. And I think maybe that's what was supposed to be most terrifying, is not that this is a big floppy green slime creature, which felt very different from like the elegant like squid-like creature that we were presented with in the bas relief and in the idol. It just feels gloopy. He feels messy. He feels unformed. And so I don't know. So that took a little bit of the power of the story away from me. So I would maybe, from a writing standpoint, maybe this guy is really grossed out by mucus, but like for me, having a mucus monster chasing me is not, it's a little anticlimactic.
I respect that.
Okay.
That's cool.
I know I probably just like upset a lot of people, but
listen, we're not here to make friends, Sarah. This is story
I'm here to
club.
make enemies specifically.
Yeah.
We're gonna have beef.
I think for me, there's like themes, just the playfulness, even though there's nothing particularly playful, but I think Lovecraft was having a lot of fun as a writer writing this. The world building, the apocrypha, the sort of like dark academia of it all, like these books upon books. And interestingly, the footnotes helped illuminate this. A lot of these seemingly like imaginary references actually are real references. So it's sort of this like hybrid, like doc horror story form where a lot of the places are really real. A lot of these folks he was related to, like a lot of the family names, like he was related to an angle,
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
some of those other names. I keep having that essay about about this story, but I didn't find it in advance of today. But that was inspiring to me. So just generally, like I'd say several things. One, be a visionary. Easier said than done.
Sure. Check.
Check. Like the story that I'm writing for the one that we started with, the Halloween horror, I've been like close reading Shirley Jackson and kind of like crafting that story in the way that she crafts her stories, or attempting to do so. But like, I would love to just like from the dome come out with some kind of just insanely bold. So that inspires me. The idea of kind of world building in the specific way we've talked about in terms of kind of like text within texts. That idea that I was articulating about the swamp, that's inspiring to me. And then what you just said about omission also, or unexplained elements, just like making sure that your story isn't closed. Yeah. I mean, I keep going back to that idea. Like, what are the elements of the story that we're still talking about it 100 years later is because it's not closed. Cosmic horror recommendations coming in. Yes, they are appropriate. Ada Hoffman's trilogy, The Outside, The Fallen, and The Infinite.
I'm adding those to my list because I have not read those, and I'm on a big cosmic horror kick right now. So,
The Fisher. Oh, here's some other one. I missed this text. Yeah. Okay, I've got a couple of cosmic horror recommendations. If it's okay to share, no worries. The Fisherman, that's on my list as well, by John Langan, Ruthana Emrys, The Innsmouth Legacy series.
I have not read those or even heard of them.
And Mateo, would it be more impactful to just leave it at discovering Cthulhu, leave the readers to think about what they just read?
Maybe, yeah. And maybe just describe him a little bit less. Or again, this might be just a me problem.
That's cool. I mean, I don't think I would have been dissatisfied not having a scene where we saw Cthulhu.
Yeah, it might have left us feeling even darker. I would kind of want to explore that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is like a theme we've found in horror in general, of like deferring the allude to the monster as long as you can before showing it. Yeah. That's a common cited piece of advice for horror movies.
Well, and if one like elderly, fisherman or sea captain or whatever, gosh, the guy with the name that begins with a J, that Johansson, if Johansson essentially like defeated Cthulhu and prevented this rising, like, I mean, that takes away some of the fear for me, because it's like, yeah, one dude can just take care of it. Like, it feels less looming. It feels less.
Yeah. And what did he do to take care of it? He didn't do anything. He just escaped.
Yeah.
Right.
But drove his ship into it. He popped him like a sad mucus balloon.
I guess we can credit him with that. But it says that, like, yeah, Cthulhu came out and now he is under the sea again, waiting for the next time the stars. Yeah. So there was like a confrontation in this, this does feel like a movie or a screenplay or something that like We set up there is a confrontation and the people defeat the monster. But yeah, maybe we should have just left it hanging. I think that's exciting, Mateo. Leaving it there would make the reader wonder what happens. Agreed.
Yeah. Ooh, Call of Cthulhu movie.
From 2005.
Have not seen it. Very excited to watch it now.
Did he join? Is it actually him, or did Cthulhu possess him, etc.?
Those are the mysteries that we could be left with at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of grace notes.
Yeah, I kind of wish that I had those footnotes.
The footnotes are great.
Back and
there's direct references to Poe. The Good and Evil is a direct reference to Nietzsche. Morality of Good and Evil, Nietzsche's famous book. Yeah, they were useful. They were useful. And then again, like some of the most banal were actually the most interesting, that like all these places and streets and some of these names were real individuals. And that is one thing I really wanted to find in that book, that if you come next week, I'll find it, is that he wrote a essay. Lovecraft wrote an essay about horror writing where he gets really passionate about saying, when you're talking about the real world, it needs to be really like realist so that your supernatural elements really land. He had a kind of a very clear vision of what horror writing is.
I like that. Yeah.
I will find it and we can contrast it with what M.R. James had to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to go back and reread the M.R. James piece too now.
Yeah.
Because that was also really good.
If you're joining the stream, this is week 5, 6. We're getting in there of a story club that Sarah Ray Werner and I are running together called The Dark, and we're working our way through this horror collection. There's a Discord server, which we haven't talked about yet, but over on the Discord, the conversation is continuing. There are several excellent writers on the Discord sharing their process, engaging with all of us together. It's really good stuff. We'll share those links briefly. And Sarah, while you're doing that, I'm gonna have to copy and paste yours because my Discord won't open right now. But I will help tease out next week because we are just on the hit parade right now, y'all. Next week is Shirley Jackson. And what's exciting is that, so if you need the Discord link, go over to Sarah's channel because for some reason I'm having a little trouble getting it.
Or I think it's even in the description of the video.
Good.
Yeah, so if they're on your channel, they can scroll.
Okay, cool. It's in the video description. So Hit Parade, it's Shirley Jackson. The Offering, I think there might be more than one Shirley Jackson story in this collection, but next week it's not The Lottery. It's not The Witch, which some of us have been reading over the last few weeks. This is a story called The Summer People, which I read this year earlier. It is a banger. It's a really good one, really dark, especially if you're a New Yorker or if you've spent time in a big city. It hits, especially, I think. It mocks a certain kind of city person in a really exciting way. Anyway, it's a really good one. Really good one. I will read the first sentence for good measure. The Allisons' country cottage, 7 miles from the nearest town, was set prettily on a hill. From 3 sides it looked down on soft trees and grass that seldom, even at midsummer, lay still and dry. Wow. How harmless.
I know. Well, it reminds me of the beginning of The Haunting of Hill House. Like she's just like in a car, right?
No.
Watching the countryside go by?
That is the opening scene, but the first sentence of Haunting of Hill House is absolutely nuts. The first sentence of this story is like very chill, and it's like, it's a beautiful house. The first sentence of Haunting of Hill House actually reminds me a lot of this first sentence of Call of Cthulhu. I don't have it memorized or anything, but basically it is to the effect of like, everyone has to dream, even bugs dream, and anyone who doesn't dream goes insane.
Oh, I forgot. You're right.
That's the beginning. But I do think that like that first scene is like her, the I forget her name, with her mom, and then she's driving to the house.
Yeah.
But
out of the fields.
This is one of those things where I think the first sentence here is suspiciously idyllic.
I'm very excited.
In
I'm very
classic,
excited.
classic Shirley Jackson domestic horror fashion. Whew. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
My gosh. Well, thank you, Asa, for facilitating this. And KBK the Goose says anyone who doesn't dream goes insane there, whereas dreams in Cthulhu actually lead to the insanity. That's a great point. Dreams.
Yeah, that's actually really fun.
That's delightful. Mateus has got to love a cottage. Everyone, thank you for being here. It's such a delight to dive into these stories and discuss them with you. I felt a little ill-equipped to jump into a Cthulhu story, knowing the huge legacy and enormous adjacent works. Like, I feel like everyone would understand it better than I did, but I really enjoyed our conversation today. I loved hearing your insights, especially, and hearing yours, and then Asa, you too, your takes on the things that you found relevant within the story. Just was a real treat. So thank you.
I mean, I do think there's virtue into coming into something with somewhat little knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, somebody read this for the first time in 1923, right? Without knowing
what did they think?
Without knowing without knowing everything you're supposed to know about Cthulhu, without having Cthulhu as a cultural context. So I do think that's cool also in its own way,
Yeah. Well, hey everyone, we do this every Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday we do sci-fi.
Next week, Monday and Tuesday.
Next week, Monday and Tuesday, because we both also have, lives that are messy and not on a regular schedule all the time. But yes, next week, Monday and Tuesday, generally Wednesday and Thursday, the first of those being sci-fi, the second of those being horror. And then
if you're curious, if you want to really this is the sci-fi book, by the way.
Yes. I'm going to let you just hold
sci-fi. Yeah. Big book of science fiction edited by Ann and Jeff Vandermeer. This is it parallels what we did today, but with sci-fi short stories rather than horror short stories. Same time, typically asterisk next week, Monday and Tuesday.
Yes. Vandermeer editing. I know. Oh, so much to read. KBK, please do come back, because we're just getting started. Like, literally and figuratively. Like, we're this far into the dark descent. We've got this much more to go. Our conversations here are going to grow. Hopefully our community will too. It's wonderful to have you here. Thank you for coming and sharing your time with us. This is just a treat.
Yeah, that goes out to everyone. Mateo, Kashiki
was here. Laura was here.
Feel better. Laura Huntress. As always, a pleasure, Laura Huntress. DNM, welcome. Hopefully we'll have you back. Thank you for your expertise around Lovecraft. That was excellent context.
Yes.
And we'll see you all soon.
All right. Take care, friends. And see you soon.